Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. First of all, want to get one thing squared away on the levees repair work. There have been some independent experts who criticize this levee work, saying that it is being done with substandard materials and designs. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
What say you about that? Is that true? If it's not true, explain otherwise. Well, let me ask you, where is the criticism coming from? I mean,
I think it's coming from various parts. Some professors, some people from
some what?
Professors.
Professors?
Yeah, and some engineers. But when the question is asked of those people, specifics where the soil test was gathered, I don't think they've answered that question. I know the Corps has asked that question. I mean, look, the Corps and we, all of us want to get it right. It's very important that we get it right. So where the soil, the test that they were talking about, we need that source.
Are you familiar with the term sandy soil?
Yes, sir.
Are they being built on sandy soil?
The Corps has assured me that they're using the appropriate soil and standards and plans to reconstruct these levees to the safest that they can, that engineering has designed.
Okay. All right, I'll leave that there, and we just got to make sure they're being built solidly.
I agree with you, sir.
We're 3 months, March, April, May, June, 4 months away from the next hurricane season. Are we ready?
Congressman,
here's the rub on that question. We're 4 months out from the hurricane season hitting again.
Yes, sir.
All of our global warming, all of our geological forecasting says we're in store for more of the same or even worse with the warming of the Gulf waters, and especially the warming of those waters coming off of the western shore of Africa that feed into these storms. So if you got that, we're 4 months out. These storms hit in September, August, September, which is 5 months down the road, and we're nowhere. It's devastation down there. And we get hit again. I mean, that is what is very alarming to an awful lot of people. Not only have we not taken care of that hurricane, we moved so slow, but here's the next season right on us, and with all the forecasts coming, we're going to have more Category 3, 4, and 5 storms coming. I think that puts even a higher sense of urgency on what we've got to do, and yet we're just grappling with it. My time is short, but I did want to make that point. My other point is, in Georgia that I represent, we are host to, we're second only to Texas, and Houston, Texas especially, as far as evacuees coming to our state. In my district especially, I represent the growth counties in and around Atlanta.
Can you start to wrap up, Mrs. Scott?
Yes, I will. My point is that we need to, could you give me some indication of what more we in Congress can do to help you? There's been a lot of criticism bandied about paying appointing president, blaming Congress, Congress blaming the president. What say you here now that we in Congress can do to help you get this problem moving and solved? Well, I know I speak for all of us in Congress to let you know that we in Congress will give you everything you need to get the job done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Your time's long expired. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Powell, for being here today.
The gentleman from Georgia.
First, let me
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to go a little different track here and to take a favorite praise from the President that perhaps we need to focus on how we can do some creative, preemptive strikes. Because if we don't do some things to detect this, it repeats itself, and we learn nothing from this. So if we know that the heart of this problem is how to detect abusive lending practices for loans that are made to people with weak and bad credit, that's essentially it, which falls into subprime lending. In each of the testimonies this morning from Treasury Secretary Paulson, Housing Secretary Jackson, and Fed Chief Barnicky, they each reference, I think one said a lack of information, another said not aware, and another said a lack of knowledge. Somewhere along the line, each one hit the same chord, that what we have here, to paraphrase another great saying, is a failure to communicate with our most basic group. Those people that are targeted in the low price homes and the low income communities, where their sophistication education is not as hard as it ought to be. So we know that. Where are we going to get the energy and the urgency to put together some very creative financial literacy and financial education packages, and in addition to that, a way to preempt some of the predatory lending practices that's causing this? And my idea is, and I'll throw this out and what I'm trying to do is get your reaction to this. I've been sort of preaching it for a while. It's not only just financial literacy programs, but to establish a 1-800 number here, set up a machinery really out of the Treasury Department with human beings on the other end. And then not only as a conduit for information on a two-way street, but we get marketing programs down, get them to the NAACP, get them to ACORN, get them to the senior citizens groups, the preachers and the churches, the people who relate to these people. With a universal message, before you sign on a dotted line, call this number. But even more importantly, why not we go a step further and require by law a background check? I mean, we've got the technology. We're very sophisticated. Most assuredly, if we can do background checks and instant background checks at that on the purchase of firearms to make sure that people are not mentally incompetent or that the proper age or criminal background, why can't we begin to look at that this way and say that for those subprime loans, particularly those that with low, where the individual has bad credit, I don't know, we could come up with a formula, we could come up with something. But before that can go through, it has to have that instant check, that background check. There's some way we can be preemptive and look at this. And what it will do, more than anything else, it will send a message out to those who practice these predatory lending practices and practice those abusive practices, say, uh-oh, I better not do this, because these kinds of loans with these kinds of communities, they're going to be doing a background check, or there's a way for them. I mean, have the communications pointed out where these people act, obviously, before they sign on a dotted line, before they do anything, that they call, but also have it where we have the system in place that we can do some sort of checks on that. In addition to all the other financial literacy points out. But I'd love to get your response to this. You think it's a great idea? Is it something?
Well, it's very quickly, because the gentleman's almost out of time.
Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I certainly appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Sherman for joining together to hold this hearing. It's a very vital issue. Illegal networks are selling nuclear technology to the highest bidder on the black market. It's an extraordinary problem and is posing a great threat, especially with Pakistan building a nuclear reactor that could very well be used to produce weapons-grade plutonium. there are differing views as to the level of complicity of the government of Pakistan in Khan's activities. Some say he was a front for the government's illicit procurement of nuclear-related materials, while others say he was just operating on his own purely for profit. And there is a view that, in fact, Khan's network was a smokescreen to cover the weapons-related activities of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. And both former U.S. Ambassador to Pakistan, Robert Oakley, and former Assistant Secretary of Defense, Harry Rowan, assert that Pakistani General Mazria Aziam Beg threatened to provide nuclear technology to Iran if Washington cut off arms sale. This is an extraordinary issue, and the chairman asked the question in the title of the hearing about the state of the black market for nuclear secrets. And of course, without the direct access to AQ Khan that we require, and without international inspection of Pakistan's nuclear facilities, we may never know the true extent of Khan's deception and his thievery. And as such, it's impossible to know the lasting effects of his network. I would suggest, however, that what is most likely is that there is not a new store manager. Rather, Khan and his cronies were so successful in selling their stolen technology secrets throughout the world that it has almost become public domain, or at the very least, available to whoever has the money. The Middle East appears to be becoming a hotspot for possible nuclear activity, and I welcome the panel's thoughts on how we can detect and subsequently defeat such a diffuse network of information selling. And I yield back the balance of my time, Mr. Chairman.
Distinguished ranking member, Mr. Pence.